I just bet $1,000 on a stock because it starts with the letter B. Hi, I'm Cliff, and I'm doing a series where I go through every stock I can find from A to Z and invest $1,000 into each letter. Today's video is about the letter B. So it turns out there's a lot of stocks that start with the letter B, 280 to be exact. Not as much as the letter A from the last video, but still a lot. And it turns out a lot of those are banks. Now, banks are normally pretty difficult to evaluate because you don't really have visibility into the liability side of their balance sheet, but right now they're even more difficult because we've had some of the largest bank failures in history in the past couple of weeks. Now, I'm not going into this cold. I've got a B stock that I already sort of know about that I would be comfortable putting $1,000 into, and if everything goes wrong and I don't find anything worth buying, I can just put the money into that, but that's not where I ended up. Now, I really wasn't sure if I was going to get there in time. I only had until the market closed on Friday night, and I didn't get through all 280 names until Thursday night when I narrowed it down to a list of 15. Part of the reason it took so long is because there were so many banks, and there are generally two categories of banks. There are regional banks, that is your local bank, and there are institutional banks, which are these large, systemically important things you hear in the news. As a quick aside, if you want some really good insights into how banks work, I would read all of Robert Wilmer's annual reports from M&T Bank. Part of the reason I almost missed the deadline is because the backup B stock that I was thinking about happened to be having their annual meeting that weekend. So I decided to take a quick trip to Omaha. So that was a lot of fun, but Berkshire still has some competition. There are 14 other names on our list. So what I am going to do is go through a sort of quantitative filter where I don't look at the price of the stock, but I look at how the company itself is spending money to make sure that I understand what they're doing and think that they are doing it intelligently and that they have better opportunities to deploy my capital than I do. And once I do this, I've narrowed down the list of 15 to 6. One interesting thing about this list is that on it is Bank of America, which happens to be a large holding for Berkshire itself, which is extra interesting when you realize that Berkshire used to hold a lot of other banks and they've sold almost all of them. So I think this gives us an important lesson which can help you avoid a lot of trouble, which is that you don't want to fall too in love with any given stock. You can't just buy any stock you want at any price, and it can be tricky because some stocks look like they just keep going, up and to the right and they just go up forever. But if you fall too in love, you can buy a stock at too high of a price and then it will go down. I want to be aware of this bias that I have for Berkshire because I like Berkshire so much. And trust me, I really like Berkshire. We're out here just getting rained on, waiting in line to get our tickets. So I think 6 is a manageable number, so let's just go through these companies really quick. First you have Bank of America, which is a gigantic, systemically important bank. BJ's, which is your classic Costco-esque wholesale membership-based retailer. TopBuild, which is a small company in Daytona Beach, Florida, who sells and installs insulation for houses and buildings, basically. Brookfield Corporation, which is one of the world's largest alternative asset managers and is based in Canada. Berkshire Hathaway, of course, which is home of the legendary Warren Buffett, and Bruker Corporation, which is a manufacturer for scientific tools that are related to the research of molecular and material sciences. And honestly, I don't actually understand a lot of what they do, so I'm just going to take it off the list right now because I know it's not going to pass my next filter, which is going through my checklist. I'm not going to go through the whole checklist here, but there's usually 1 or 2 questions that really help you narrow things down. And this time it was, who is your biggest competitor? And this helped me eliminate 2 of these companies, one of which is BJ's, because why would you want to compete against Costco? And then Bank of America, because not only are they competing against other very large banks like JP Morgan Chase, but they're also competing against anyone that can provide a better place to put deposits. Because with the way technology is right now, you can open a bank account and then move all of your assets from one place to the next very quickly. And that is a really scary thing for banks. After the checklist, we go to a price filter, which is where I actually look at the numbers and try to come up with a valuation valuation of what I think the company is worth, and it doesn't take long for you to realize that Berkshire is one of the most picked over stocks in the world, and you can do some quick math and realize that it is probably not overpriced, probably not underpriced. You have one of the greatest financial minds on the planet who has spent decades trying to make sure that that is the case, and I think he's done a pretty good job. So we're probably just going to take that off the list, not because it's not a great business, but because there's not really any money to be made there, and just move on to the other two. Whenever you go through a bunch of companies like this, what you're really hoping to do is find a company that was overlooked, probably because it's too small, and capitalize on it because it has such a long growth trajectory ahead of it, and it is a great business that just hasn't been bought into yet. TopBuild very much fits that description, whereas Brookfield is already an established business that will probably only grow incrementally year over year, which is still great, but if it ends up being that the valuation for TopBuild is good enough for us to buy, we will probably get better results with that, but we have to make that decision. Honestly, these businesses are both pretty great, it seems, so my instinct is to just split the difference and put 500 in one and 500 in the other, but I'm going to resist that urge because that's just sort of a laziness, and I want to really concentrate my capital on what should be my best idea if I'm doing things properly. When attempting to calculate intrinsic value, what we're trying to do is look at a company's ability to generate cash and compare that to its cost of maintaining its competitive advantage. In a given market, it has a certain competitive position, and some of the money that it makes will have to be reinvested into the business just to stay in that spot where it's at. So it's not growing at all, it's not really going anywhere, it's just these businesses competing to keep up with each other. And it's the number that goes above and beyond that that we really care about, because that is the amount that will be compounding over time and will really lead to it pulling ahead from the pack. So this one is super close, and I'm not sure I can even give a quantitative reason as to why I decided to choose the one I did. That's just how close they are. But in this scenario, I think I just have to ask myself, which one of these companies will I have more conviction in when things get tough? And I'm gonna have to go Brookfield. I think that Bruce Flatt is one of the greatest investment minds of our generation, and as long as he's at the helm, I have a lot of conviction. It's going to be really hard to get me off of the stock, and at the prices that it's selling at right now, the fact that it is undervalued at all, I think is a bit amazing, and I am happy to take advantage of that opportunity to buy it, hold it forever. I also like that it pays a small dividend, so I have some income, and they can't just keep all the money and get lazy with it, so that's nice. After all was said and done, I got roughly $1,000 of Brookfield Corporation at $30.16 a share. As soon as I publish this video, I'm going to start on the letter C. So subscribe if you haven't already, and check that out in 2 weeks.
Mom, what are you doing with Charlie Munger? Oh, God.